Good evening and welcome to AAI's first online retirement roundup featuring three remarkable speakers. We'll be hearing from Cindy McLaughlin, who is the senior editor of a retirement investing program, Dr. Craig Israelsen, who is a distinguished academic and practitioner in the investment sector, and Todd Blickenstaff, who is the president and program chair of our Portland, Oregon chapter. This is a powerful trifecta representing AAI insider insights, outsider perspectives, and what we refer to as chapter chops, the expertise and acumen of our own chapter leaders. This event started out as the multi-chapter collaboration between New York City, Portland, Orange County, Eastern Michigan, and Austin, Texas. But AAI was so impressed with the speaker lineup that they opened it up to our membership nationwide. So we have people from chapters across the country joining us tonight. I'm Hollis Wagenstein-Herturk. I'm the New York City Program Chair and National Chapter Liaison. And joining me tonight is Scott Brewster, the New York City Chapter President, who's also my co-pilot for this event. And Scott will be introducing the first panelist in just a moment. But I'd like to acknowledge and thank our chapter partners, Bill Hawes in Austin, Stephanie Davis in Orange County, Ron Gadoff in Eastern Michigan, and Todd Blickenstaff in Portland, Oregon. And Bill and Todd are also incoming members of our chapter leader executive committee. So we welcome them and congratulate them on joining that very elite team of people. As a prelude to tonight's theme, I'd like to remind you that the average AAI member is age 72, and that is steadily inching upwards. And 77% of us are already retired. So many people might still believe that retirement is something that happens to you at age 65 when they hand you a gold watch and kind of kick you towards the pasture. But tonight's program will flip that narrative and convince you that you are something that happens to retirement. Retirement looks like a noun, but acts like a verb. It's an active process that informs every stage of our life, from the accumulation phase, when we're young adults early in our careers, to the transition phase, when we enter maturity, and the distribution phase, when we're living in retirement. And AAI has something to offer us at every stage in that journey. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that this event is being recorded. The recording will be posted to the New York City Chapter Community Library as soon as it's ready, and it will also be made available through our partner chapters, and AAI will distribute it nationally to everyone who signed up through their registration link. We're going to be shutting down the chat during the presentation, so please place your questions in the chat box. The chat box is located just a little bit center left at the bottom of your screen, but we're going to hold the questions until all three panelists have had an opportunity to finish their remarks, and then we will repeat the questions back for the purpose of helping the people both who are listening live, but also those who will be listening in the recording, so everybody knows what question is being answered by whom. So without further ado, I'm turning the podium over to Scott Brewster, who will introduce our first panelist.
Yeah, and just a quick, before we get started, thank you everybody for coming. The days are getting longer, the weather's getting nicer. It's so nice to have you here spending your evening with us. Also just wanted to make a really brief service announcement. The New York chapter of the AAII has put together a nominating committee. What we're doing is looking for more new board members, and we're going to have an election for our board. So if you know of anybody who wants to be on the New York City chapter board of the AAII, they're members of AAII, and they're members of the New York chapter, please, reach out to us and give the name. We'd love to have more people participating. You don't have to be in the local area. The world is global now. You just have to be a chapter member. You can reach us at our website, www.aaiinyc.com. That's aaiinyc.com. And at the bottom is our email address, but the AAII NYC is easier to remember. So anyway, it is great to have to be here. It's great to be here with three wonderful speakers. And today it is my pleasure to first introduce Cindy McLaughlin, who is she's having currently trouble with her video, but she is here, and she is the lead editor of AAII's Retirement Investing. Before joining AAII, Cindy worked for a company that provides workplace retirement solutions. She partnered closely with plan sponsors, creating content and campaigns to educate employees on retirement topics, with the goal of increasing participation and contributions. Her experience in financial services also includes multiple roles at an investment management firm where she created educational programs for financial advisors and individual investors on exchange-traded fund topics. At AAII or AAII, she also creates content for the mutual funds and ETFs column in the monthly AAII Journal, and her work on value momentum quality stocks portfolio with Charles Rotblit. By way of education, she has an MBA in finance from DePaul University. And so without further ado, Cindy.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Like Scott has pointed out, it's getting lighter out and nicer out, and I really appreciate you giving up your time to spend a little bit of the evening talking about retirement. And what I am going to talk about is some of the challenges that we have in retirement, some of the challenges with accumulating and transitioning, and then working with and maintaining our portfolios. So thank you again. And I wanted to point out that my contact information is down here on the lower part of the screen. So if you have a question after the presentation, please feel free to reach out and email me. I'm very passionate about our subscribers and just love the interaction that I have with them and love to connect with everyone. So I wanted to start off by saying the retirement puzzle is really complex. You're going from being a worker and a saver to being retired, and it's one of life's biggest transitions. It's perhaps even more stressful than the death of a family member or losing your job. It's a very big life transition. And only 1 in 5 of American workers feel confident about their ability to afford a comfortable retirement. And 64% of us are also stressed out about retirement planning. So the big point here is that retirement just doesn't happen in a day's time. Like Hollis indicated, it's really a lifelong planning process. And we've all heard that kind of either encouraging or scary statistic, no matter how you look at it, about spending 30 to 35 years in retirement. So it's definitely not black and white. And workers also have the challenge of not understanding the retirement options and their workplace plans. And many are unsure about where to get information, so they turn to friends and family to fill this gap. Accumulation challenges. I am currently an accumulator, and what I read recently is that nearly half of Americans age 55 and older just have no retirement savings, and half of all workers just have no access to a retirement plan. So that's kind of a problem. And we don't have a lot of opportunities to participate in pensions. Those opportunities are rare. And it requires substantial longevity at an employer, starting when you're really young and staying until you're, at retirement. That is just not really going to happen in our current workforce environment. So the participant bears the risks and the reward of the investment choices and makes contributions and works with these defined contribution plans. So some would say that's good. Yeah, you have more control and you're not relying on somebody else. But on the other hand, it's a lot to learn about, and many people don't realize how actively involved you need to be. And I wanted to point out that Fidelity did have good news a few weeks ago. They reported a 20% increase in their 401k millionaires. That is possibly bolstered by the recent market gains. But on the other hand, Bernie Sanders was decrying these other challenges and recently held a hearing decrying that we don't have pensions and that Americans are in bad shape. And then you have the gig economy, which provides lumpy income and just not a really good way to save. So that is another thing to consider. And we also might not have a choice about when we retire. We might not get a gold watch and, a nice little party with a cake and everything. We might just be shoved out one day. So retirement income challenges. So if you've made it to retirement, and there are just a few viewpoints, or a number of viewpoints rather, on the best way to approach withdrawals and spending. And taxes are a major consideration. So managing taxes over your lifetime really requires balancing current and future tax situations. And conventional wisdom suggests, well, invest in a Roth while your income is typically lower and your taxes are lower, and then shift over to a tax deferred plan and investing as your income increases. So that's one possibility. But then we have a number of withdrawal strategies. The AAII level 3 withdrawal strategy, created by AAII's founder, James Clunan, helps retirees really stay invested in assets, offering great growth potential for the long term. And then until you need your money, and you will evaluate each year what the market is doing and decide to switch to more of a defensive strategy or more of a withdrawal from your equity strategy. His strategy also calls for investing in defensive assets, part of your portfolio in those assets, up to 4 years before your retirement. So you kind of have that buffer. And then we have William Benyon's 4% rule. And the good thing about it is it's well discussed, it's well known, it's pretty easy to understand. And he's recently stated, or maybe a little while back, that 4.5% is really the safe withdrawal rate. You can go up to 4.5%. So we have that consideration. And then we have the bucket strategy. So what the bucket strategy equates to is you're going to set up 3 buckets, years 1 to 2, safe assets, 3 to 10, kind of an intermediate type of assets, and then years 11 to 25, this is your long-term principal you're trying not to touch. So what you're going to do over time is when you spend down that first bucket, you're going to backfill with the other buckets, or just try to replenish that first bucket with cash that's coming in from whatever cash sources you have. Now, this is a really good strategy. I heard from a subscriber who said, I really like this strategy, but it's a little difficult to implement. It requires a lot of tracking and rebalancing and kind of flipping between my accounts and spreadsheets. So not all these strategies are equal. And then there's the floor and ceiling approach. That's another real popular strategy. There are several ways that this is implemented. Probably the easiest one to think about is if you have kind of a dollar floor and a ceiling in dollars, and then you spend until you reach your ceiling, and you spend until you reach your floor, depending on what the market's doing. So it just really gives you some swim lanes and very simple terminology. And Social Security. Social Security is something that makes a lot of people's heads hurt. So we have all of these claiming strategies. Some of them maximize benefits, some of them minimize taxes. It's very complex, and there are just a lot of concerns about the sustainability of the program. People who were nearing retirement, in one survey I read, 47 of them said that they are not confident about receiving their Social Security benefits that they've accrued and are entitled to. So that is the retirement income challenge extravaganza here. And I just wanted to include in my slides, when they're posted online later, here is a level 3 retirement withdrawal approach. Just talking about the 4 years before retirement and transferring from, your equity to your defensive bucket. And then if the market's down, you're going to wait to transfer. And then you're going to, as you go ahead and retire, withdrawal from either one of those buckets. And if the market had been down, you would go ahead and replace in that defensive bucket to make up for anything you couldn't do in your 4-year pre-retirement time frame. And then the Benyon rule, just a little more information on that. 4% to 5% of portfolio value each year, that goes up depending on inflation. And it usually includes 50-50 allocation, stocks, bonds, 35 years were tested. And you can have an equity allocation up to 75%. So the more portfolio challenges, just focusing on the portfolio, you have asset allocation and asset location. So there are a lot of tax implications and rules with asset allocation and location. So which accounts do you take your RMDs from? Do you start, with the tax deferred accounts? Do you kind of keep your Roth accounts intact? Some people, I hear from subscribers who use a strategy where they take a qualified charitable distribution off the top, and then their taxes are minimized, their distribution and taxes are minimized. And it also helps reduce any Medicare surcharges. So that's one strategy, but all these things need to be considered. So when you think about people retiring and just kind of sitting around, yeah, there's some of that, but you really need to be alert and have your ducks in a row. And the Secure Act 2.0 offers a lot of opportunities, but it also introduces some ambiguity. So the RMDs right now, starting for those who are age 73 after for 72 after 22, and then the RMDs would start for those who are when you're 75, for those who are 74 after year 2032. And one thing they did with the Secure 2.0, the Roth seems to have a lot more importance. Currently, the way the law is written, catch-up contributions are supposed to go into Roth for high earners starting in 2026. There's been a lot of controversy about that because, wow, that seems unfair because, you know, the high earners are not getting the tax advantage of the tax deferred for those contributions. And it also allows more interesting things like 529 to Roth rollovers. Defined contribution plan providers can match student loan payments with matching payments to those accounts. And so just a lot of opportunity, but I think employers are struggling to update their systems a little bit. And one thing that may help everyone save is having emergency savings accounts associated with a Roth account. So that would be a good thing that might encourage people to save. So one concern with retirement portfolios is the sequence of return risk. And that is the order in which positive and negative returns occur over a given time frame. And this is really critical during the period surrounding your transition into retirement and when an investor moves from accumulating assets to drawing down those assets. And I just want to show a couple of examples about this. So this is a 60 portfolio, and it is from year 1999 through 2023. It includes the mutual funds VFINX and VBMFX, large cap equity, and bonds. And I chose this period to display this because this was kind of an exciting time frame in history. We had the tech bubble run up, then we had the aftermath of that, or what, you know, those who worked in the telecom industry might call the tech crack. Then we had the global financial crisis, we had the pandemic, and we had the 2022 down market. So what I did, not to bore you with spreadsheet methodology, but first I kind of made the returns into, you know, 60-40, and then I sorted them by left the actual, what actually happened alone, and then sorted them into best to worst and worst to best for that portfolio. And you will notice over on the right, it ends up the same. The end point is the same. This is for a portfolio that just kind of, you know, wrote out. Nobody took any withdrawals. We didn't account for inflation, just a regular portfolio. Had time to really work and accumulate. So where it gets interesting is when you have the 4.5% withdrawals, the best to worst. The gains in the portfolio, the equity markets coincided with years that were where withdrawals were the smallest, and then the portfolio continued to grow. It had an ending value of 258,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. And then the worst to best, the scary situation, this portfolio ran out of money in year 17. And I want to add that there was no rebalancing with this. So this is just withdrawals, no rebalancing, taking 4.5%. And just kind of calling out what happened to the bad portfolio. And this, I found this, it made my heart flutter. It made me really nervous to think about this situation. So, Hollis, we are ready for our first poll question. We've been talking about these retirement challenges, and I want to hear from our subscribers and participants tonight about which challenge is the most concerning to you. Okay.
Cindy, this is incredible. We have 506 people online, and so far, 497, no, I'm sorry, 390 have responded. So
Oh, thank you.
80% of our attendees have responded. You let me know when you want to end the poll and see the results.
Okay, whenever you're ready. Oh, wow. Okay. Tax planning and withdrawal strategies. I like that. Yep. It's very consistent with what I've heard from our subscribers so far. Thank you.
Shall I stop sharing the poll?
Yes, please. Thank you for everyone for participating in the poll. I really appreciate it. Okay. Asset allocation models. So part of my research, in 2023, just last year, I found a report on a multi-generational workforce from Transamerica. They had a retirement outlook report, and they indicated that only 35% of their workers surveyed felt comfortable or felt like they knew quite a lot or a great deal about asset allocation. And additionally, 63% didn't know what they felt they should about retirement planning. So our AAII model portfolios and A+ investor tools provide investment ideas and tools and can kind of help bridge that gap. So we have a portfolio or an allocation scenario for an aggressive investor, a moderate investor, and more of a conservative investor. And the 60/40 portfolio would be more that moderate investor. And I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the AAII retirement investing platform. We launched this in October. It is all web-based. We have around 2,000 subscribers so far. If you're out there, a shout out, thank you. And what we have on here is we have subscribers receive a monthly newsletter with about 5 pieces of content. They're going to get a weekly insight email with an article, and then all of these are put on this site. And we also have what I call the retirement pulse poll, where there's a survey question each month, and subscribers have an opportunity to respond to the survey, and then we publish the results. I provide commentary, and it gives an opportunity not only for me to connect with all of the subscribers, but for subscribers to also better understand issues that other retirement investing subscribers are facing. And we have news in the weekly insights edition, and we have how-to, we have guides and further information. And you will see over on the right hand of the screen, we categorize all of this content by life phases. I mentioned that I'm in the accumulation phase. We have people who are transitioning, pre-retirement phase, and then we have those who are living in retirement. But these phases aren't exclusive. You could be accumulating and planning on retiring in the next few years, like we talked a little bit about with the AAII Level 3 strategy. Or you could be transitioning and maybe partially retired, but still, getting some income from a job. So those are 3 phases that we chose to kind of represent the life phases we feel are important. So the content is labeled according to the life phase on the website, and it may appeal to more life phases. And I just want to really emphasize that we're focused on solving timely problems. I'm here to anticipate these timely problems and break them down, provide content, and also engage with experts. There are a lot of things that are out of our wheelhouse, like Medicare and Social Security. So we plan to bring in experts to, further talk about those situations and shed some light. And Hollis, we are ready for our next poll question about what life phase you are currently in regarding retirement. Thank you. How are we doing on the voting?
We have so far about 412 people have chimed in, and I'm interested in seeing this because it looks like 67% of the respondents are living in retirement, and that matches the polling that we did from AAI that said about 77% of us are living in retirement. So it's not that far off from ideas that we already knew about. Let me know when you want me to end the poll.
Yes, whenever you're ready, please.
Here we go.
Okay. And AAII has additional resources to help with not only retirement planning, but just managing your investing portfolio. Our A+ investor subscription is a really good way to be able to not only select stocks, funds, ETFs, but also understand how risky your portfolio is. And you can look at things like diversification. You can focus on your top 5 holdings, and there are a wealth of tools in here for getting a really good handle on your investments. So I just wanted to give a little call out to that. And Hollis, I think that's all I had for right now until we get to the question and answer session. Thank you to everyone for being such a good audience. I'm going to see what happens when I enable my video again. Oh, okay, I'm still purple. So.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. That was wonderful. Extremely interesting, and it is amazing how important tax planning is and how much of a focus it is on people, plus withdrawals. So right now, it's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Craig Israelsen. Dr. Israelsen holds a PhD in family resource management from Brigham Young University. He taught at Brigham Young University for 9 years and at the University of Missouri Columbia for 14 years. He now teaches as an executive in residence at Utah Valley University in the Personal Financial Planning program. He currently serves on several investment committees, My 529 and Health Equity Advisors. Primary among his research interest is the analysis of mutual funds and the design of investment portfolios. He wrote monthly for Financial Planning magazine for over 20 years and is now a regular contributor to horsesmouth.com, Better Investing magazine, and the AAII Journal, and is widely cited in countless top publications. Dr. Israelsen is also the developer of the 712 portfolio. You can go to www.7 then 12 spelled out portfolio spelled out.com, and the author of 3 books. His most recent book is titled 712, a diversified investment portfolio with a plan, from John Wiley and Sons, 2010. So without further ado, Dr. Israelsen.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And I will echo what has been said, that we appreciate your taking some time with us this evening. I'd like to show a few slides to get you ready for a spreadsheet demonstration that allows us to look at some impacts of the variables associated with retirement portfolios in a wonderfully exciting live format, and yet it's complex enough that I need to set it up. So what we are looking at is the analysis of retirement portfolios over the past 98 years. That is a period from 1926 through the end of last year, 2023. The fundamental questions that undoubtedly, I was going to say plague, but that's a little too strong. The questions and the concerns that we have associated with our retirement portfolio is likely twofold. One, will my balance decline during retirement? And that may seem to be an obvious yes, and I would ask you to hold on that. It's really not an obvious yes. And secondly, will I run out of money in retirement? So we can address those two, both in the slides I'm going to show and in the spreadsheet that I'll show after the PowerPoint slides. So here's the analytical setup. From 1926 through 2023, 98 years, there have been 74 rolling 25-year periods. So I'm looking at a 25-year period as that time frame that represents when a retiree is from age 70 to 95. And many of us will not make it past 95. In other words, 25 years is a sufficiently long period to represent what may be the total length of our retirement. We all know people that have lived longer than that, and we all know people that have lived shorter than 25 years in retirement. So I'm using 25 as kind of the ballpark number for the length of retirement. The first 25-year period was 1926 to 1950, the second 27 to 51. I think you can see the pattern. The 74th 25-year period was from 1999 through 2023. So let's assume that each of these rolling periods represents a 25-year retirement window for 74 different retirees. And I'm going to plug in, when we get to the spreadsheet, age 73 to 98, because 73 is when the RMD hits, at least new people coming on to the RMD at this point. Each retiree withdraws money from their portfolio at the end of each year. So we're analyzing, by virtue of all of these rolling returns, we are enabled to visually see the impact of what Cindy referred to as the sequence of returns issue. And we're going to study the sequence of returns risk using actual historical returns of 4 prominent indexes: large cap US stock, small cap US stock, US bonds, and US cash. And I can show you those indexes when we get to the spreadsheet. Importantly, these results are not Monte Carlo. This is an actual historical look back at returns, at the returns of a portfolio built with 4 asset classes, 4 indexes, as it actually happened. First question, how often was a 60-40 portfolio, 60% equity, 40% fixed income, larger than the starting balance after 25 years of withdrawals? So the answer to this question is drawn from the analysis of these 74 rolling 25-year periods from 1926 through 2023. If the RMD is governing the annual withdrawal, a portfolio, and it doesn't matter what the starting balance was because these are percentage withdrawals, and so it's all relative to itself. So if it started out with $100,000, after 25 years of RMD withdrawals, the balance at the end of the 25th year was higher than the starting balance 82.4% of the time. If it's a 4% withdrawal rate, and there are different ways to do a 4% withdrawal rate. As Cindy has mentioned, the Bill Bengen approach. What I'm doing here is simply pulling out 4% of the portfolio's balance at the end of each year. So if you have a $100,000 balance in the portfolio, then 4% of 100,000 is $4,000. So you would pull 4,000 out. So using that version of a 4% annual withdrawal rate, the ending balance was higher than the starting balance every single rolling 25-year period since 1926. Thus, historical evidence suggests that a retirement portfolio can grow over time. Now, what we often fail to mention, but is obviously implied, these results assume that the retiree stayed in the portfolio, in this case a 60-40, and didn't bail out during scary periods. That's a really big caveat. That dictates all the results we're going to look at in the slides and spreadsheet that we're going to look at together. Okay, so let's flesh this out a little bit. Same question, how often was a retirement portfolio larger than the starting balance? Okay, those two numbers I just showed you, 82% and 100% are right here. If the RMD is governing withdrawals, if it's a 4% withdrawal rate, what about a 5%? Well, 96% of the time, the portfolio had a larger balance after 25 years of withdrawals. A more conservative portfolio, so now we're dipping into the asset allocation issue, and this is now flipped it. It's a 40% equity, a 60% fixed income. If the RMD is governing withdrawals each year, only 43% of the time was the portfolio larger after 25 years of withdrawals. A 4% withdrawal rate, 98.6% of the time, a 5% withdrawal rate annually, 92% of the time. So still really impressive results, even with the 40-60, assuming you're not affected by the RMD. If you get into the RMD, if that's what dictates how money comes out, then obviously you're better off with a 60-40. For those who have an appetite for higher equity allocations, I looked at an 80-20 model. If the RMD is governing withdrawals 93% of the time, you had a higher balance after 25 years of withdrawals. And if you're pulling out 4% or 5% annually, the portfolio was larger 100% of the time. So this slide hopefully does one primary thing, and that is to instill confidence. and minimize or reduce dramatically the fear associated with living in retirement, worried that you're going to capsize your portfolio. A reasonably diversified portfolio with a material allocation to equity is very difficult to kill, as these numbers indicate. The RMD is the most demanding of these three scenarios in the table. The RMD is the most demanding, of course, because this is a percentage that increases. It grows larger each year over the 25-year period. And because of that, it's a harsher taskmaster in terms of how much money is coming out. So if the RMD governs how you withdraw money, in other words, you have accounts that are impacted by the RMD, and not every account is, then you would probably want to consider a 60-40 or an 80-20 to counteract the escalating nature of the RMD. And it also illustrates that asset allocation does make a difference. What I would add is that when we make little micro adjustments, say from let's say a 60-40 is the portfolio that we're using. And then we sort of ask out loud, well, I wonder if I went to 59% equity and 41% fixed income, if that's going to rock the boat. And it really doesn't. The only way you get a material change in these outcomes, as illustrated by these percentages, is to make a material change in the asset allocation. I'm going from a 60-40 to a 59-41 is not a material change. Now, the purple question, how often was your retirement portfolio totally depleted? In other words, as we look back to 1926, all the way through 2023, we analyze all 74 rolling 25-year periods. Do we ever find a 25-year period using returns as they actually happen for large US stock, small US stock, bonds, and cash? Did we ever kill a portfolio? Did we drive it to zero? No, we never did. Doesn't matter how you withdraw it, whether it's RMD, 4% or a 5% annual withdrawal, we don't have an instance where it completely went away. Again, that should instill confidence. We don't have to live in fear. To live in fear is a horrible way to live. I think that's obvious. So I have come to believe that the kind of confidence that we're seeking, or the security that we're seeking, is partially fueled by an awareness of what has happened in the past. And if we study enough of past cycles or past timeframes, it gives us a pretty decent idea of what lies ahead. So reasonable percentage-based withdrawals. And now I have to just really emphasize that a percentage-based withdrawal is different than a fixed dollar amount of withdrawal. In other words, some people want to take $50,000, $60,000, whatever, some fixed amount of money out of a portfolio. And that has the potential to kill a portfolio. If, on the other hand, we only pull out some percentage of the portfolio's value, whether it's the RMD percentage or 4%, that doesn't kill a portfolio, because after a bad year like 2008, a percentage-based withdrawal will be smaller than the withdrawal the prior year, because it's a percentage of the balance. And if the balance went down, the withdrawal goes down. That's what allows the portfolio to be insulated from being emptied. Here are the indexes driving all the analysis: the S&P 500, the Russell 2000, the Bloomberg Aggregate Bond Index, and Treasury bills. Now, let me just change gears just for a moment and set into motion some thoughts regarding the income sources that we have during retirement. And Cindy also mentioned these. Number one, Social Security. Number two, other income during retirement, maybe earned income. Not every retiree stops working. They may transition to some other part-time job. There may be an annuity. There may be rental income, whatever it is. It all lumps together as other income. And then third, withdrawals from our portfolio. Those are the three main sources of income during retirement. What if those collective sources of income exceed our retirement expenses? Well, that's a good thing, obviously. But it also creates retirement capital that is accumulating through surplus income. And I know that may seem like an odd thought, but it's not an odd thought. There clearly can be situations where our expenses begin to slow down as our physical capacities slow down. We don't travel as much, any number of reasons. And I want to show you in the spreadsheet how we can capture this notion of growing, the potential for growing retirement capital based on cash flow, independent of our portfolio. So at this point, let's jump over to a spreadsheet tool that I've been working on for probably 15 years. This is called the Retirement Portfolio Analyzer, and it has helped me personally be more confident about the ability of a portfolio to persist. Whether or not that portfolio provides sufficient income is a separate issue. There are two issues. One, will that portfolio be liquidated? Will I kill it? Secondly, will it produce adequate income? Those are two separate issues. And we can look at them both. But I just want to make sure that we think about those as separate components. If you do have questions after the webinar here, feel free to email me, Craig@712portfolio.com. I'll try to be a good email citizen and respond in a somewhat timely manner. But feel free, don't be hesitant to reach out to me. So let me now go to the spreadsheet. What I want to show you is this idea of rolling periods can be a little confusing. So just kind of focus on this section right here. That'll help conceptualize what's going on in the spreadsheet. Think of these rolling periods as representing separate and distinct individuals. So the first 25-year period or retirement window is from 1926 to 1950. Let's say that 25-year window is Susan. That's her retirement window. And in analyzing that 25-year period for Susan, we can calculate her average annual withdrawal and calculate her actual ending portfolio balance. The next rolling 25-year period is Jamie. And the first year that money was pulled out was 1927. The 25th withdrawal was in 1951. The average annual withdrawal is calculated for Jamie. Jamie's ending portfolio balance is calculated, and so forth. Then you have Andrew, Juanita, Connor. Connor is the 74th retiree. His first withdrawal was in 1999, 25th withdrawal in 2023, calculated his average annual withdrawal over that 25-year period and his ending balance after 25 years of withdrawals. All 74 of those then get rolled up to a grand calculation of the average annual withdrawal for all 74 retirees and the average ending balance for all 74 retirees. So that's now what's going on behind the scenes as we look at the results. So let's click on portfolio data. That now is, this is the dashboard. This is where the important variables that govern a retirement portfolio can be dealt with. So the current year is 2024. Let's leave it there. The current retirement portfolio balance, let's say it's $1 million, just to change it. Current age is 73. Age when portfolio withdrawals begin, let's leave that at 73 just to make it easy. Those numbers can be different if they need to be. And here's our asset allocation, another variable that we have to deal with as a retiree. What I've got here now is a 50-50 portfolio, 25% allocations to all 4 asset classes: large stock, small stock, bonds, and cash. If you want, we can go to a 40% large stock, 20% small stock, 30% bonds, and 10% cash. Our expense ratio for that portfolio, let's say it's 60 basis points. And our withdrawal method is a 4% annual withdrawal. So now here's the immediate results. With $1 million portfolio, our average withdrawal annually across all 74 retirees, Susan, Juanita, Connor, all of them, is $85,000. So that average is the average of a lot of numbers. You got 74 retirees times 25 years each that they withdrew money. So that's 1,850 annual withdrawals. The average of 1,850 withdrawals was $85,006. Obviously, that's going to vary over time, and that variance is shown down here in this little graph. So what I've done is highlighted the 25-year period that had the optimal sequence of returns, and that is from 1975 to 1999. So 75, that first year of withdrawal was after the meltdowns of 73, 74, and stopped. The 25th year was 1999, just before the tech wreck that started in 2000. So that represents an optimal sequence of returns, and you can see what a difference it makes in comparison with the other paths associated with the annual withdrawals for the other 73 retirees. The bright pink dashed line is the average for the group of 74 retirees. And that pink line is moving upward, meaning that on average, the annual withdrawals for each of these 74 individuals is increasing each year, which is wonderful. And in fact, 63.7% of the time, the next year's withdrawal increased using a 4% withdrawal rate. That's because the portfolio is growing, and you can see the growth in the portfolio in this graph to the right. That is the account balance each year for all 74 retirees. So when these two graphs are generally trending upwards, we have a quick visual realization that the withdrawal each year is increasing more often than not, and the portfolio balance is increasing over time. 69% of the time, the withdrawals kept up with inflation. Okay, so that's our cash flow analysis right here. In the blue is, how is the portfolio balance doing? Well, the average ending balance was 3.4 million. And the starting balance was 1 million. That's what we typed in. So how often did the balance grow? 100% of the time. What was the success rate? Meaning, how often did the portfolio last for 25 years without collapsing? 100% of the time. So it gets kind of fun to then test it. What's the most we could pull out of this and still have a good success rate? And this will illustrate the dynamics of a percentage-based withdrawal. Let's go to 5%. Okay, so our average withdrawal went up a little bit and our balance went down. Not surprisingly, if we move from a 4% to a 5% withdrawal rate, we're going to increase the amount we take out at the expense of the balance. So if you want to do a fun little experiment, get a piece of paper and write down, let's go back to 4% as a starting point. So 85,000 was our average withdrawal and 3.4 million was our average ending balance after 25 years. So we'll write those two down, 85K and 3.4. Now we go to 5%. Now we go to 91,000. That's the average withdrawal from the portfolio. And 2.6 is the average ending balance. So you can kind of see what's happening. One goes up, the other goes down. It actually gets a lot more interesting here in a second. Let's go to a 6% withdrawal rate. Now we have a 95,000 average withdrawal. We go to 2 million as our average ending balance. Let's go to 7, 96,000. So now that's not a lot higher than it was at 6%. That was 6% had an average withdrawal of 95,000. So we only picked up $1,000 and our average ending balance went from 2 million down to 1.5 million. So clearly the move from 6% to 7%, that's a little iffy. Didn't give us much in the increase in the withdrawal, but took $500,000 away from us in terms of the average ending balance. Go to 8%. Oh, our average annual withdrawal stayed the same, 96,000. And now our average ending balance went down to about 1.2 million. So by virtue of this tool, we can determine that there would really never be a situation where it would make sense to go beyond a 7% withdrawal rate. You don't increase your average withdrawal and you harm the average ending balance. And that's really useful to know that. The 7% would be the top end. No benefit going beyond 7% withdrawal each year. Let's type in RMD. RMD now uses an entirely different set of percentages that are highlighted here in the RMD table. So if you start at age 73, those are the RMD percentages that will apply each year. Your first withdrawal will be 3.77%. The next year's withdrawal will be 3.92% of the portfolio's value, and so forth. The average, using RMD, the average withdrawal, you can see it right down here, is about 6.9, call it 7%. 7% is the average of those 25 RMDs. It's kind of interesting because we just decided that 7% would be the top end of, if we're going to pull out a set percentage each year, with no reason to go beyond 7. Okay, so this allows us to get a handle on what the impact would be of different withdrawal methods. Let's go back to 4%. And now let me just demonstrate real quick what happens if we play it far too conservatively. We go to a 50% bond. Well, I say far too. A person who plays it very conservatively, that's their choice. But in all fairness to themselves, then you would need to have an idea of what the impact of that is. So a 50 bond, 50 cash portfolio, the average withdrawal is about call it $45,000. So about half of what we were seeing with that 60-40 portfolio. And the average ending balance is 1.17 million. Well, that's actually pretty impressive. 1.17 is higher than the starting balance. That's incredible. And if that's the ideal portfolio for a person, then that will work. You just have to recognize that the average amount you can pull out will be dramatically altered. Let me just show you one. It's kind of fun to see an all cash portfolio. And the graphs are, they're really symmetrical. In other words, the variation in cash returns over time is not that great. And so you have a graph that takes on a very different, almost artistic look. Whereas if you go to, say, all small stock, you see the erratic nature of the graph because the return pattern of a 100% small stock fund it can be the best of times and almost the worst of times. It's so varied. There's such a dramatic standard deviation difference. Let's go back to our 60-40, 40% large stock, 20 small, 30 bonds, and 10 cash. So if that more or less coincides with how you see your portfolio being allocated during your retirement, and if that cost structure, 60 basis points, is about what you're paying, you're going to pull money out using a 4% rule. You then go to the retirement budget, and this is where things get really specific to you, your situation. You would enter the Social Security COLA that you anticipate. You would then enter your Social Security monthly benefit, and then if there's a spouse, the spouse's monthly benefit. And in this case, there's a delay. The spouse might be younger than you, and so his or her benefit starts in year 3. If you're the same age, then you can just type 1 there, and then both individuals' benefits show up immediately. Let's leave that at 3. Whatever is a bright yellow cell is where you enter data that's specific to you. Your estimated other monthly income at $2,000 each month over time, and it probably won't be fixed like that, but just for the sake of illustrating the variables that will impact you specifically. So that's your first income source, your Social Security benefit. Your second, the spouse's. The third monthly income source in retirement is other monthly income. Then there's the portfolio withdrawal. Well, that $36.72, that's the average monthly withdrawal based on the data you've already entered in the previous tab, this information right here. So that's now giving you a sense of what is my portfolio delivering to me over time, year by year. And you can see it's a growing monthly withdrawal, which is encouraging. And you look at all those, and that on an average annual basis, that's 85,000. Well, 85,000 is that same number we saw right here. This just fleshes it out, and you see it not only per year, but in this case, set as a monthly figure. You then enter your tax rate, the percentage of your portfolio, the percentage of your total gross income from all sources, what percent of that is taxable, what income tax rate do you estimate, and then finally your monthly expenses. And again, for simplicity, I've just put in 7,500. What that now allows us to look at is a monthly budget, surplus, or deficit in this column right here during retirement. So with this illustrative data entered, you show a modest little deficit each month for the first 2 years. Then in year 3 of retirement, you show a monthly surplus, and that continues through year 25 of retirement. Then you can illustrate all the data you've entered in terms of annual numbers. Here's your estimated annual net income in year 1. You needed annual income that you entered as a monthly figure right over here. This shows you your annual surplus deficit in your cash flow. That then is illustrated right here as what is the cumulative deficit or surplus over that 25-year window. With the data that's been entered, you show a $1.3 million surplus, meaning you had that much excess income over the 25-year period in year 25. Add to that your estimated portfolio value in year 25, which is 3.4 million. And that's where you come up with this estimated total accumulated capital of 4.7 million. And that is that figure right here, 4.7 million, of which your portfolio was 3.4 million, the average ending balance. And then added to that is a budget surplus. Now, when individuals, of course, enter their specific data in the budget, that will obviously change. But what's so valuable is that these two tabs interact in a natural way. We would set up a portfolio with an asset allocation that seems reasonable to us, but then we would go to the retirement budget, enter in all the specific data, and then notice that we've got some deficits. How do we respond to a forecasted deficit in retirement? Well, we can come back and say, okay, do I need to up my equity allocation a little bit? Do I need to find some cheaper funds and maybe go to 40 basis points? Do I need to go to 3.5% withdrawal? That's that iterative connective tissue between what our portfolio is designed to do and then the realities as best we can forecast them in a retirement budget where we can, in a granular way, enter the data that essentially interacts with the portfolio. All that said, the whole point of this tool I have found is it's less quantitative than you might think. There's a qualitative element here. The qualitative element is that we can be at peace with this. We can realize that if we're modest in our withdrawals, and if we have a little bit of courage with regard to our asset allocation, at least a 50% equity allocation, that we'll be fine. And we have to be modest in our expenditures. That is the single biggest takeaway. And I hope it's the biggest takeaway for you, that having enough money and not realizing it, and having enough cash flow, but somehow not realizing it, is where fear comes from. And we can counteract that with an adequate awareness of what history is teaching us. One other fun feature in 30 seconds is the ability to go in and say, you know what, I think the future is going to be worse than the past. And so in these 4 cells right here, you can enter performance adjusters and say, I think going forward, the returns of large stock will be lower by 100 basis points, small stock lower by 100 basis points, everything lower by 100 basis points. And then determine, did that kill the portfolio? Nope, sure didn't. 100% success rate. And you can be more aggressive in your pessimism and see what the impact is. So after enough iterations and analysis of doing this over the years, I have really come to understand that the virtue of a percentage-based withdrawal. And if we do otherwise, if we go in and let's say I want an $80,000 withdrawal, and I want the next year's withdrawal to be elevated by the rate of inflation, I just entered that here. So I'm withdrawing $80,000 the first year, and then the next 24 years, that 80,000, well, let's focus on the second year. The second year, that 80,000 is increased by the rate of inflation. The third year, it's increased by the rate of inflation. That's how you kill a portfolio, because that's a fixed hard dollar amount. It's never allowed to go down. Here we say a success rate of 40%. So I want to show you how to kill a portfolio so you won't kill a portfolio. Well, that is hopefully a quick live analysis that gives you a sense of confidence and the assurance that if you stick to your guns and you stay in your portfolio, you'll be fine. With that, I'll hand it back over.
Well, that was fantastic. Really fantastic. Thank you very much. I I definitely, it's nice to have guardrails about what not to do, not just what to do, but what not to do as far as withdrawals go. Wonderful. Tonight's been fantastic in so many ways, and we're not done yet. We are now have one more presenter. We have Todd Blankenstaff, and Todd has 36 years of experience in the investment and financial service businesses. Todd managed investment portfolios for high net worth individuals, complex trusts, charitable foundations, and employee benefit plans. Todd co-developed and co-managed an industry-leading tax-efficient large capitalization equity investment strategy and has also managed bond mutual funds. In addition, Todd has demonstrated expertise in working with successful business owners, as well as skill sets in project management, tax policy, financial and strategic planning, research analysis, compliance and regulatory issues, marketing program development, public speaking, and presentation coordination. Todd is currently active in consulting and real estate investing with his company firm, BCM Ventures and Consulting. Todd is also currently the president and programs chair of the Portland, Oregon chapter of the American Association of Individual Investors and has been on the chapter board member since 2017. Without further ado, Todd.
Thank you very much, Scott. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
And hopefully see the screen. I'm going to do a presentation today and take a little bit different tack, but wanted to mention that I know at least a third of you in the audience here are still in the savings accumulation or preparing for retirement a phase of your careers. And so I think a lot of these points will apply to you that I'm going to make here in this 10-point presentation. And some of the key points may also apply to some of you attendees who may be partially or fully retired. For instance, Craig Israelsen used the example of people receiving income from rental income, real estate, or other sources of income in their retirement, in addition to their investment portfolio. And so this presentation, I've taken and formulated these bullet points from a recent article written by Sandra Block and appeared in a recent version of Kiplinger's Personal Finance magazine in text form. And I wanted to summarize it here with just key points. Also wanted to point out this is focusing on financial challenges versus mental and emotional challenges, which are also extremely important. Don't make light of those, but that's the subject for another day in another presentation. I'll be moving through this presentation quickly and not explaining each of the subpoints in detail because there's not sufficient time to do that. I designed it for viewers of this presentation, attendees today, to use it as a checklist to see which retirement options may be available to you and what adjustments you may want to make for your specific retirement situation or perhaps that of a family member. And so, again, a copy of this slide presentation will be made available to each of you along with the other presentations by our speakers today at a later time. So, I'm going back here and we'll toggle down here. And the first obstacle is, frankly, room in the budget to save. I think this is something that we've all struggled with various phases of retirement. And, you're young, you've got expenses to take care of. And but I would urge you, I managed retirement plans, particularly 401k plans and pension plans for many years. And if you can contribute anything at all to your 401k plan, that is key. Start early as soon as you're eligible for the plan and contribute at whatever level you can. One nice thing about it is ERISA law requires employers to offer an opt-out program. It was opt-in when I started the business, and some people, because their expenses were pressed, did not enroll right away, and that was a disincentive. And so the ERISA changed that law now. So you actually have to take action to opt out, but I don't recommend you do that. It's the best forced savings program available for employees of large companies. And of course, 403B plan is the equivalent in the nonprofit sector or government. And one other factor is most companies, and I believe according to a Fidelity study, over 85% of the companies that have a 401k plan have offered employee match. And so definitely urge everyone who qualifies for a plan, participate in it, and also seek, if any way you can, to contribute at least up to the employer match percentage. Don't leave that money on the table that employers are offering you. And that's very, very important to have as a goal. And also, now that Roth 401ks are available by many companies, where you basically invest with after-tax dollars versus pre-tax dollars, that's a consideration as well. For instance, our daughter is used a combination of both for the company that she works for. And I would also say that if you don't have a 401k, you work for a small company, you're self-employed, look at the other investment options out there. And traditional IRAs, which you can fund with up to $7,000 annually. There's a catch-up provision for those 50 years or older. And there's no maximum salary limitation, which is a nice benefit. It's a benefit that is not capped. With Roth, the provisions are similar, but there is a salary cap there. You can only contribute to a Roth IRA if your salary is $146,000 or less, but that includes most people. There's also solo 401ks available with different requirements. But you can contribute up to 20% of your net employment income for an annual combination of $76,500. So this can be a huge benefit for those who are self-employed and have their own companies. This is also the SEP IRAs that have been around for decades now for self-employed workers. SEP IRAs generally have fewer administrative requirements. There's a lot of paperwork, compliance work required with 401k plans, and that's why people tend to work with large firms when they have them. SEP IRA is one thing to keep in mind. If you've got employees for the company that you may own, you're required to contribute an equal percentage of salaries for them. So keep that in mind and talk to a plan specialist before you make those decisions. And again, SEP IRAs are traditionally pre-tax vehicles. Both Roth SEP IRAs are becoming available, like the Roth 401k and Roth IRAs that have been available for years. Obstacle number 3, student loan payments. Those of you who may be help funding your son or daughter's college expenses, that's or you may have college expenses of your own for when you took out student loans. It's important to keep that in mind, and you're required to pay them back. I know that's been a political issue. The Biden administration sought to waive those requirements. It's likely, frankly, to be a campaign issue in the presidential election. But it's important to look if payments are burdensome, if they're holding you back from funding your employee retirement plans, see what options are available. Sometimes tuition assistance is available from employers. There is a temporary tax-free benefit of $5,250 on student loan benefits that is expiring in 2025, but it's still out there now. There was a 3-year pause on student loan payments during the pandemic, but that provision ended in October 2023. So again, if you have a student loan payment, you're required to pay it, make payments. Standard repayment period is 10 years. And there's also what's called an income-driven retirement IDR plan that's available with flexible payments based on loan forgiveness. So if you're really having trouble, or your son or daughter is having trouble making payments on their student loan, look to see if they're employed, if that IDR plan might be a benefit that's available to you. And also, there's the tax laws are such, and I urge you to talk to your CPA about this or other tax expert. Contributing to 401k or other retirement plan could help qualify for a lower payment with an IDR plan. And again, saying about 401ks, it's a forced savings vehicle. It's a great benefit. I've worked with individuals. I spent most of my career working with high net worth individuals, as well as pension plans, retirement plans, et cetera, but mostly high net worth individuals. And I always told them, look, make sure you're funding your employee retirement plan to the maximum before you look at setting aside other funds to invest, because it's the best deal out there. I believe strongly it still is. Obstacle number 4, changing jobs. Now, this is important to note because workers between the ages of 18 and 24 change jobs an average of 5.7 times in their lifetime. That's a lot. Workers between the ages of 25 and 34, the next tier older, have changed jobs an average of 2.4 times in their lifetimes. It's important to consider your retirement benefits and making decisions when switching jobs or firms, I should say. You may be able to, I mean, if you go transfer internally from one job to another within the existing firm, you don't have to worry about moving your retirement plans. But if you're leaving the firm, you need to look at that. You may it may be advantageous to leave your existing plan with your previous employer if they have a more lucrative plan, or you can look at rolling it over into a plan with a new employer. And of course, then there's IRA rollovers, which you can do if you're retiring, or you decide that you just don't want to participate in 401k or 403b plans going for the duration of your working career. You can look to roll that over, but check with your HR office at both firms if they have one. If you're switching jobs, that's really important. Now, a lot of people come to a point in the career, they've got a lot of expenses. They may be getting ready to buy a home. They may have medical expenses, a variety of things. Borrowing from your 401k is an option with most 401k plans. If you have an urgent need for funds in the short term, you can take what is effectively an interest-free loan from your 401k by withdrawing the money, depositing in your bank. You can also avoid penalties by redepositing those funds back within 60 days. So that's important to keep in mind, those deadlines, if you have that flexibility. There's such thing as a hardship withdrawal. Plan participants can take a withdrawal from their plan to meet an immediate and heavy financial need, which includes, as I mentioned, medical expenses, preventing a foreclosure or eviction from your home, tuition payments, funeral expenses, and losses related to a natural disaster, which a lot of people have run into experience with inclement weather during the past few years. Depending on your plan, you may be allowed to take a hardship withdrawal to purchase your primary home too. And that's what a lot of people have tried to do. Let's see, it's important to, when you take the withdrawal, you don't necessarily have to withdraw the money, or repay the money, unlike the 401k loan, but you're not allowed to put the money back either, which means you have less money that's accumulating towards your retirement. Part 2 of obstacle number 5, no money for emergencies or not enough money for emergencies. For the 401k loan, you can borrow as much as 50% of your savings, up to a maximum of $50,000 over a 12-month period. Plans typically charge you interest to, I guess, borrow your own money, which may not seem right, but it is an option for you and something you should look at. The interest rate charge is usually 1 to 2 percentage points above the prime rate, which is currently about 8.5%. Unlike a hardship withdrawal, a 401k loan comes out without restrictions on how you can use the money. So that's a key difference. If you take the loan out, you have flexibility on what you do with the money. But if you leave your job, you must repay the loan by the due date of your tax return, plus extensions in the year you depart the job to avoid taxes and possible penalties. So that's a key decision. If you have the power to decide if you're going to stay with that firm or not, you might want to stay long enough to repay that loan. Otherwise, you run into taxes and penalties that can be very expensive. Obstacle 6, the rising cost of childcare. As most parents know, this is much more expensive than it's been in recent years. Been a lot of inflation in childcare expenses. Your average family spends 27% of household income on childcare. Some organizations offer flexible sending accounts. You may have heard the abbreviation FSA. This is different than HSA, which we'll talk about in a minute, but most employees offer this benefit, which allows employees to make annual pre-tax contributions, which means you're not paying taxes on that benefit of up to $5,000 annually. So you may want to participate in that if you're paying for daycare expenses. Funds can be used to pay for cares of children up to age 13 or younger, and that's a requirement if both spouses are working. It can be more restrictive if one spouse is not working outside the home. Consult with your tax professional regarding that. It can also be used for dependent care. You've heard the phrase sandwich generation. Many of us are caring for children, also maybe caring for parents. So look at what could be most advantageous in terms of using those FSA benefits for either child care or dependent care. Again, funds are pre-tax and avoid Social Security and medical taxes. So they're really triple tax exempt. So this can be a valuable savings for you, and look into that. Tax credits for dependent children available, again, for 13 years or younger. Tax credits can be used for elder care, and so you can use a tax credit even if your organization doesn't necessarily provide that benefit. And check if your employer does subsidize childcare costs or may even have on-site daycare offered for larger organizations. Obstacle 7, college costs. I know that we did this in our family, set up a 529 college savings plan when our daughter was very young. It was very, very helpful. Went a long way towards paying for college tuition. For use that at a qualified institution, they can provide also a state tax deduction on contributions if you use your own state plan. Now, I know that for some people have researched that and said, well, my state doesn't have the best 529 or college savings plan relative to another state. Maybe it's more expensive. Maybe the investment choices are not as robust as they might be in an out-of-state plan. But you better do the math on that because, for instance, we live here in Oregon. Oregon has a state income tax that you can get a credit on. Washington State, the adjacent state to the north of us, does not have a state income tax, so that makes a difference in that decision process, depending on which side of the river you live on, as we describe it here in the Pacific Northwest. You might look at other alternatives such as scholarships and high school advanced placement courses, because keep in mind, not only does that further your child's education or your own, but it also can allow your child to earn college credits and can shorten the time required to graduation, which means shorten the outgoing tuition dollars for college graduation. So important to keep in mind with college costs. And of course, that's an area that's had a very high inflation rate in the past couple of decades. Obstacle 8, healthcare costs. This is the other area where we've seen tremendous inflation. I know I've used myself, excuse me, I went forward too far. Those high deductible healthcare plans, oftentimes if you work for particularly large organizations, they'll offer different types of healthcare plans. But if you go for one that has a larger deductible, that will allow you to normally set up an HSA savings account that can help fund some of the medical expenses during the year that your healthcare plan may not cover. So that's an added savings account, and it can be very, very useful. And normally you can contribute up to $4,150 in an HSA for individual health insurance plan, or about twice that, $8,300 for a family plan. And if it's 55 or older, similar to 401ks and other retirement plan options, you have that catch-up provision that applies. You can contribute an additional $1,000 a year per individual to participate in the HSA plan. The HSA plan, again, had to be enrolled in a high deductible healthcare plan. So compare those carefully. Withdrawal eligibility, the funds grow tax-free, and withdrawals are tax-free as long as the money is used for eligible healthcare expenses. And at age 65, there's an additional benefit. You can take penalty-free withdrawals from your HSA for non-medical expenses, although you do have to pay income taxes on the money, but it can be a source of cash flow for you. So keep that in mind as well. Obstacle number 9, caregiving. I referenced the sandwich generation that so many families find themselves in. More than half of employees in the country identify themselves as some type of caregivers. This was from a recent survey that Bank of America did, and that's 57% of them are women. So that's important to keep in mind too. Your employer may offer caregiving benefits. Nearly 90% of employers offer some kind of caregiving support. And frankly, this is not well known. It's very important to study your benefit offerings every year. Don't just breeze through them quickly and say, well, I'll do what I did last year. You might have an additional need or that you didn't have last year, you or your family might, or there may be additional benefits in your program that were not available last year. Companies are working to enhance their benefits package. So I would urge you to, once those materials become available, and of course there's usually deadlines to enroll, really read them carefully and carefully assess where your benefit dollars are going. And as I mentioned, 41% of employees, only that percentage of them know about the programs, and less than 1/3 of working caregivers take advantage of them. So this is a benefit that's really being overlooked. And again, another benefit that can help more money in your pocket and more money to allocate towards your employee savings plans. You take advantage of these employees. Check the personal benefits available as a caregiver. If you believe that, and some employees have been forced to leave their job to be a full-time caregiver. So that's important to keep in mind. Before making that decision, I would definitely get professional advice before doing so from a skilled financial planner. And if for instance, assuming two people in a family, 2 parents or seniors, and one situation, if one has to step away and become a full-time caregiver, the other spouse that's still, assuming they're still working, contribute to a Roth 401k, and again, $7,000 annually plus that catch-up provision if you're 50 or older, to a traditional or Roth IRA on your behalf. So that benefit may still be available to you, even though you're not working, because of that benefit provision and the tax benefits that go with it. Spousal 401k. If your spouse is covered by a 401k or other workplace plan, contributions to a traditional IRA are deductible as long as the adjusted gross income is less than $230,000. So there is an income cap on this, but most people will be eligible for it, and it's definitely a good idea to take look at it and consider it for your family situation. Obstacle 10, this is the big one that all of us face and we've thought about: running out of time to save. Again, as I mentioned early on in this presentation, if you qualify for a 401k or other employee savings plan, you should take advantage of that, participate in that as soon as you're eligible. And there might be a vesting period, can be traditionally been over 4 years to entirely vest, which means if you were to leave the employer, you would be able to take all of that money with you. But it's important to start saving as soon as you can. Time is your ally on your side. Do that as soon as you can, and hopefully up the percentage over the years as you hopefully may make more money and advance in your career. So these are areas where you can use these different tools with the catch-up provisions that apply to do what's called supercharge your savings. Again, 401k, 403b catch-up. This is kind of a a summary of some of the savings vehicles that we talked about before. Workers 50 and older can contribute up to $30,500 in their retirement plan. That includes $23,000 plus $7,500 in catch up. Traditional or Roth catch up, $8,000 and $7,000. And plus the $1,000 in catch up provisions for a total of $8,000 per year. Working longer, of course, is another option, as many people are, for a variety of reasons. Some because they want to, because they really enjoy working beyond standard retirement age. Some because they have to make it work, and can obviously make your savings last. You're contributing for a longer period of time, and so your savings are presumably going to be worth more over the years. And so that's kind of a summary of these 10 points. Again, I put it in bullet format, bullet point format, so that you can use this information. And I would urge you to, keep it printed out, keep it as a checklist. And when you get that annual benefit statement and choose the options to how to invest your investment dollars, perhaps use it as a checklist to cross-reference this. And of course, talk to specialists in your HR department or skilled financial planners that can help you with this. And so that's what I have to present today, but really urge you to really stay on top of that. And I'd like to thank Sandra Block from Kiplinger Personal Finance Magazine, who put the text version of this together, and then I summarized it in bullet points. So thank you very much, and I will hand the microphone back to Scott here for Q&A and whatever else you want to cover.
Yeah, well, thank you. Definitely. What a complex topic, and great to have those 10 points, obstacles, and how to overcome them. And it goes to the sort of format of tonight, which all three speakers, that how knowledge can help us overcome all these obstacles that we have in our lives to a worry-free and secure retirement. So thank you, Todd, and thank all the speakers.
Welcome.
And turn it back over to you, Hollis, and thank you for putting this all together. And you always do such a fabulous job, and thank you. So back to you, Hollis.
Thank you, Scott. It's a privilege to work with such an ace team, and you've always been you're the best co-pilot a webinar host could hope for. I want to thank Craig, I want to thank Cindy, and I want to thank Todd. Each of those presentations had its own flavor and personality, but each was a great contribution to our knowledge base here. I'm going to invite Cindy to post her wrap-up slides while I talk about how we're going to handle the Q&A. We spent more time with the speakers perhaps than we could have hoped for, but we're not going to be able to handle the Q&A in the traditional fashion. Number one, there is a tsunami of incoming questions and comments. And number two, it's getting a little late in the day. So this is what we're going to propose. We're going to take all the questions in the queue, convert them to text form, share them with the panelists, and have them answer in written form, and post the Q&A transcript to the New York City Chapter Community Library to share it with our partner chapters and to make it available through AAII so that people can see the written answers to their questions. We haven't done this before. We're going to innovate. We're going to pioneer a new way of handling it. But at this moment, because of the large, blessed, enthusiasm of the crowd for many, many questions, and because of the late time, at least on the East Coast, we think it's best for us to wrap now with the promise that you will get your questions answered and addressed, but in print form. And I want to point out that every person's AAII membership comes with the privilege of signing up for any and all chapter communities that appeal to you. I belong to the Portland chapter and all the other chapters. There's no reason why you can't sign up for New York and follow the progress of our library postings in the retirement resources page there. So have no fear. You may be able to get it through AAII. You may be able to get it through your own chapter, and you can certainly get it through the New York City chapter community library. And now I'd like to ask Cindy to share her thoughts about how to take what we've learned tonight and turn them into actions and next steps. Cindy?
Oh, hi. Hi again. Thank you for staying with us all this time. This will be pretty quick. So we have opportunities at every life phase. And as Scott and Craig reinforced, we need to prioritize long-term savings, and we need to structure our portfolio to match our retirement goals with asset allocation. And Craig's model and spreadsheet tool just did a really excellent example of exemplifying that. And finally, managing taxes over a lifetime. Use account location for your savings and withdrawal strategies. And I wanted to, again, remind everyone of AAII retirement and investor resources. Just encourage you to reach out and use those, or sign up for ones that you may not currently have a subscription to. And then finally, we have a subscription offer tonight for retirement investing. So we have a 20% discount for people who attended the webinar. The promo code is down here, webinar 20, and the slides, when they're posted, will contain this link that you can use to go ahead and register if you wish. So thank you for a wonderful evening and for your attention.
We'd like to say that this is not the end of this. It's the end of the beginning, because we're hoping to have more periodic retirement roundups, and we hope to stay in touch using the facilities in our AAI chapter communities. I'd also like to call your attention to our topical SIG communities, especially the retirement withdrawal SIG, which you can join and follow this topic in a different way. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I would like to once again thank our panelists, Todd, Cindy, and Craig, for doing such a remarkable job. We hope to bring them back and revisit their thoughts and expand upon them in the future. I want to thank the audience for being patient and responsive. I want to thank Scott for being my co-pilot. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to reconnecting with you at another AAII webinar in the near future. Okay, good night, everyone, and I look forward to staying in touch with you.